Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, what's going on in California? Josh Gross joins us. He's the publisher of Beverly Hills Weekly, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years.
Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Serving Our Kids Foundation's mission is to serve homeless, at-risk, and food-insecure children in grades K through 8 throughout Southern Nevada. During the pandemic, Serving Our Kids has seen a 42% increase in the number of children served, providing more than 4,500 meals to kids in over 100 schools weekly. Serving Our Kids is powered by community support and volunteers. To learn how you can help, visit servingourkids.org.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Josh Gross. He is publisher of the Beverly Hills Weekly. It is a pleasure to have you back on the program, sir.
Great to see you again, Sam.
So I like to just check in with California and see what's going on. And there are so many comparisons with high-end retail from Beverly Hills to Las Vegas that I think it's always good to take the temperature of what's happening there in Southern California. But first, I want to ask you, we dropped our mask mandates here in Nevada last week as we're taping this. How are things going in California at this point?
Still pretty heavily masked. They just dropped the requirement for outdoor masks with students in public school. But indoor masks still in effect. Hopefully we're going to see that go away soon, but it hasn't happened yet.
What is the feeling of the general population regarding this at this point? Because it seemed to me that in Nevada, a large portion of the population had said enough already.
Look, Sam, that's certainly my position, and I have a handful of friends who feel that way. But there's also a large constituency of people who like the rules, who like the masks. And frankly, in my opinion, there's a number of people that don't ever want to go back to normal. And, that's very disconcerting to me and others, because the whole plan here, the whole idea why everyone got vaxxed was that we would go back to normal. Well, there's some people who don't seem to want that.
And frankly, if somebody wants to continue wearing a mask, and it's not mandated, I'm fine with that. I mean, for years, we saw people visiting from Asia who would come to California and Nevada and wear masks, and certainly wear masks in the airport. And I never really thought about why they were doing that. I just figured maybe there's some kind of health issue that they're having. But for anybody who's not comfortable, as long as it's their decision, why not be masked if you choose to? And there's a lot of people that I've talked to who say that they've had a very healthy time beyond COVID, that they haven't gotten the flu and they haven't gotten colds. So, who knows, that may be a whole lifestyle change for a lot of people.
Yeah, Sam, can I say, I used to get 2 colds a year, without fail, whatever I would do, wash my hands, etc. I haven't been sick at all since the pandemic. So while I don't identify myself as pro-mask, I will admit it's sure nice not to get that cold anymore.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see if the government takes steps, both on a federal and state level, to encourage people to live more healthy lifestyles, like, hey, you should actually wash your hands all the time, not just when you're told to. You should maybe exercise and eat a better diet, and then maybe you won't be so prone to having lots of other health issues, but not be mandated, but just encouraged to have a healthy lifestyle.
Look, Sam, if there's two takeaways, in my opinion, from the pandemic, one is what you just said, wash hands, sanitizer, clean yourself, etc. The second is what we're doing right now, Zoom, and how proficient everyone is with Zoom now, and that work from home, of course, for many businesses is here to stay. Some employees like it, some don't, but those are definitely two takeaways from the pandemic.
Do you think that's so that working from home is going to be, because to me, I mean, I have certainly a nice house and happy to do things from there, but I like the social interaction. I mean, my marriage came out of my workspace. I think a lot of people's do, especially as you get a little older in life and you're not going out to bars and all these other things. That there's a social environment, and I think young people learn a lot of things through a social environment, and so I have concerns that if you take that away from people, that they are going to be even more socially maladjusted than in some cases they are already.
I agree completely. Look, I work in the newspaper business, so we stayed open the whole time. We're essential, but for me, the idea of working at home would be anathema, because I would have little to no social interaction with anyone. And one thing I would caution the young people nowadays who love work from home, there's a value to interacting with your colleagues and them knowing you face to face. When you're just a voice on the screen, it's a very different environment. And also, I think for promotions and things of that nature, I'm not sure that's such a great idea. But again, I think it's here to stay.
I'll tell you a brief funny story. When I was in my mid-20s, coming from England, I was not really familiar with American football. And I was working at a radio station, and I was engineering the football games. And I had no idea till I actually went to a game, because I'd only listened to it on the radio, that both sides weren't on the field at the same time. That, in soccer, everybody plays the whole time. I didn't realize that, the defense and the attack were on the other, on the field at different times. So yes, you can have a completely different view of what's going on if you're not able to see. But I think, we lost something when cash registers told people how much change to give. Sure. And I think we've lost things with texting, replacing conversations. And I think that people who are able to have conversations, as we are having, have a huge advantage over people that are merely exchanging information via email, text, or whatever.
Yeah, but Sam, also, what about the increase in depression, loneliness? People like to interact with other humans. That's a very normal reaction, right? And the idea that we're all just going to be on this computer all day long and it's going to be great, that's not something I want to do. I can tell you that right now.
All right, I want to change to politics here for a moment. Gavin Newsom, any doubt in your mind that he's going to be reelected?
He's going to be reelected because California is a deep blue state, and now with the new changes we've had, remember, everyone receives an absentee ballot now, whether you request it or not, and the postage is paid on that ballot. So for those reasons, you're not going to see any realignment politically. I don't think you'll see a single Republican elected statewide. And frankly, that's not good for a two-party government. But remember, it's been upwards of 15 years since we've had a Republican elected to statewide office. You're sure fortunate in Nevada that at least you have two strong parties to duke it out. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this next election cycle to see how true that becomes. Let's take a break. We'll come back with much more with Josh Gross. He's the publisher of the Beverly Hills Weekly right after this timeout.
In Steve Sisolak's Nevada, criminals are free to walk our streets, and it's harder for police to do their jobs. He made our elections less secure, now the worst in the nation. Joe Lombardo's Nevada? Safer, more secure. Increased penalties for violent crime and more cops on our streets. He'll require photo ID to vote and make ballot harvesting a crime again. Joe Lombardo, restoring our values and keeping us safe.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your furnace breaks down today, we fix it today. Why freeze for days while your furnace is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get warm again? For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 and we'll fix it today. That's 323-5585 or online at nevadaheating.com.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. One of the things I love about the Carson Valley Inn here in beautiful downtown Minden is CV steak. I have eaten here so many times. Tell folks what they can expect when they come here to eat.
It's a beautiful room, great service. We have certified Angus beef, seafood, lamb, a great range of appetizers, and wonderful desserts. Jean-Michel's done a great job of selecting some beautiful wines for us. The customers love it, and we've got a great selection of cocktails as well. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Josh Gross. He is the publisher of the Beverly Hills Weekly. I got to ask you about this because I know, because we've been friends a long time now, that through the recession and through COVID, it's been a tough road for the newspaper business, and you certainly weren't excluded from that. But as a businessman, you found ways to survive and thrive, and your publication is still doing very well. What do you think about all these newspapers that are begging for money from readers, donate to our newspaper to keep journalism alive? Isn't it really just a bad business model that's out there, rather than, you know, the public needs to donate money, or the government needs, even worse, needs to donate money to newspapers?
Sam, you know, it's so sad to see what's happened with the newspaper industry. It's a multifaceted problem, but let me give you a couple things to think about. First of all, yeah, I agree with you. Newspapers need some kind of model that works. I'm not a fan of the paywall concept. Okay, I never thought that would work, although it does work for some high-end publications like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, etc. As a local newspaper, we've been extremely fortunate because Beverly Hills is really supportive of its newspapers, and they've shown that for many years now. But for the other small papers that are having a hard time making it, it's a sad commentary to see a world with no print journalism. No blogs can't do it, no Patch can't do it. There's been some things brought up over the years. Oh, maybe we'll just have an online newspaper where people write their own content. That doesn't work. That might work for Facebook, but that doesn't work for print journalism, because you're not going to have objective reporting. So again, we've been fortunate. My heart goes out to those papers that have been having a hard time, but you just got to find some way to keep going and to be able to meet your bottom line.
But I mean, isn't it really the business model itself that's been screwed up? Because in the beginning, the newspaper industry really just gave away the internet as a bonus, and they didn't really figure out that they needed to monetize it. And there had been a certain arrogance in larger newspapers, and I'm not including the Beverly Hills Weekly in that, but there was an arrogance in larger newspapers that they could just charge whatever they wanted because they had such huge circulations. And, they did lots of things to screw things up for advertising agencies, for example, by putting out net billing instead of gross billing, which meant that an advertising agency had to mark up their product to their clients, which was never a comfortable situation, as against TV stations and radio stations that always did it a different way. And we may be a little deep in the weeds for some of our viewers at this point, but businesses are not guaranteed to succeed, and newspapers have been around forever. I mean, going back to Roman times.
Right. And by the way, they're still read. That's the upshot, right?
Right.
They're still read by your most affluent readers, by your voters, your high propensity voters. They still read newspapers. But as to your point, let me just point something out. A friend of mine had a bookstore, and everybody, of course, laments the demise of the neighborhood bookstore, right? And he used to say to me, Josh, people don't realize that every time they purchase a book from Amazon, even though they mean well, they're putting me out of business. Well, I would give the same example when I see colleagues and businesses advertising on Facebook instead of in print. Well, you're putting newspapers out of business when you do that. And that is not their intent, obviously. I think many of them still support the concept of a newspaper. But there's no question they have to put their dollars where their sentiments are. And unfortunately, not everyone understands the value of print journalism and why we have to keep it going, certainly as long as we can.
All right, but another side of that coin, though, is that the reason that you've succeeded is that you have a publication that people want to read. They have a desire to read that publication, and they have a desire to read it in print as well as online, and you sell them advertising that funds not only the product, but also enough to pay the reporters and give you a profit. And that's the business.
Not much profit, Sam, but yes, you're right.
Right, but you're still here. And I mean, it's been tough for all of us. But you have to have a business model. There is a local newspaper in Nevada at this point that is offering 3 months online for $1. Come on.
Well, they're trying to increase their subscribers, obviously.
Right, but you can't get people off from $1 to $25 a month or $50 a month. That's never going to happen. Once you've devalued the value of your product, then it's over.
You're right, but I'm skeptical of the subscriber model at all. And as to your point, we do give away our internet. Let me tell you why. We've found that readers don't like to pay for internet. They will pay for other things, but for whatever reason, they will not pay for internet. So we made a decision that for us, it was worth it to give away the product on internet. We've made up for it in other ways, as you indicated. But a lot of these things, Sam, are not as simple as they might appear. So, you say, well, you could charge 25 or 50 bucks. We could, but, we've made it up in other ways. And frankly, we've found that's a better way to go.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not saying that a subscriber model is the way to go, because we don't charge for our website either. If you want to come and watch shows, you can go back to 2005 and see all the shows you want to want to see. But it's the advertisers who are paying for it. So, that's the model. Anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk more with Josh Gross after this time out.
I can't do it. Stupid, like my mom.
We can't do anything at Mommy's because you won't pay child support.
Dad said you cheated, and he's not even sure he's my dad.
Mommy said you left both of us, so she isn't gonna let me see you. I look just like my father.
I'm divorce attorney Marilyn York, and I may represent men, but hate has no gender, only casualties. Please, stop sacrificing your children in your war against your ex.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. Entertainment here at the Carson Valley Inn is extraordinary.
Yeah, super proud of the TJ's Corral, our outdoor venue, about 1,500 seats. We've had first-class entertainment out there. We've had Merle Haggard, we've had Chris Young, we've had Lee Brice a couple times, we've had Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, who's in the Hall of Fame. We're real proud out there, and it's just a great time. Watch CarsonValleyInn.com and grab those tickets early. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Josh Gross. He is the publisher of the Beverly Hills Weekly. One of the things I love to do is check in with you on what's happening on Rodeo Drive, because it has so much in common with the high-end casinos, which seems to be most of them these days in Las Vegas. I don't know if you've had a chance to go to Resorts World yet, but man, that place is amazing.
Well, Sam, we are sort of the canary in the coal mine, aren't we? A lot of the trends we see in Beverly Hills later move to Las Vegas. Shopping's up. Look, we've got the buyers, and that's nice. But here in California, and I would imagine this is an issue in Vegas too, staffing. Very hard to staff things, particularly if you operate after hours or not a traditional 9-to-5 kind of business. Major shortage of workforce. I don't know what the solution is to that, but it's definitely something the retailers are complaining about.
Yeah, retailers and restaurants as well. There's several restaurants in the Reno area that are only opening 4 or 5 days a week because they don't have the staffing to maintain a 7-day-a-week schedule. And I don't see the answer to this either. I would have thought that once the government funding was cut off, that you would see people going back to work, but for some reason they're able not to do it, which seems bizarre.
One thing I would ask your viewers and some of your guests who are opposed to greater immigration, would they change their position if there was some sort of I'm going to use the example of the Bracero program, which you might recall was in California for many years, where people could come in and work for a specified period of time and then go home. Would maybe some of these people be open to that? Because let me tell you something, we need workers, and we particularly need workers at the bottom end of the financial scale, right? The low end stuff. What are we going to do? How are we going to find enough people to staff these things? Because when a business owner has to tell you they have to close because they can't stay open, I mean, that is insanity, Sam.
Well, another side of that too is construction, where we have this incredible need because of so much money flooding into the country, from these bills that were passed by Congress for infrastructure. And my question is, who's going to build them? Because,
That's right.
At this point, every part of the construction industry is struggling to find enough workers. And so now you're just flooding it with more money, but you're not flooding it with more people. I totally agree. That Bracero program was in the 60s,
yeah.
and supplied workers, but they were able to go home, but they were
That's
legally able to come and legally able
Correct.
to leave. I think a lot of the issues that were causing so much consternation back in the 80s when Ronald Reagan passed the last major immigration reform are gone. Unions are no longer against immigration because they feel that immigrants coming would end up being Democrats because of the attacks from Republicans against them. Businesses still would want to have lower cost employees if possible. I think a lot of the issues have gone, but you look at Congress and how difficult it is to get anything done, that is the biggest problem.
Well, yeah, and Sam, as you indicated, it shouldn't become a red-blue thing. It should simply become a worker thing. And one thing to think about is, in past downturns in the economy, the issue was, no money, no capital, no jobs. Now we have the money, we don't have the workers. And that is a very unusual problem to have, isn't it? Normally it's the other way around, right? So the fact that you can't find people to work is something that both parties really need to take a very hard look at and fix so that we can get our economy revving at full throttle, full speed, and stop this business about, restaurants closing at 3 p.m. because they can't find an evening shift. I mean, that is really nuts.
Are you finding, because I'm sure you get press releases from your congressional delegation the same way I do, that there seems to be a disconnect between what's happening in D.C. and what's happening in the district? Do you feel that?
Yes, because remember, D.C. is almost always booming because it has government money.
Right.
Even during the Great Recession, D.C. was, doing great, right? So yes, but I also think that, some of that hinges on the individual member and how in tune they are with their particular district.
One last thing here, we've got a couple of minutes left. I was recently in Oakland, California, and almost became a victim of a smash and grab while I was actually sitting with my wife in our car. in downtown Oakland. How big of a problem is this in Southern California?
Enormous. And by the way, former Senator Barbara Boxer, was mugged in Oakland. Same kind of story. Probably not very far from where you were, Sam. Listen, violent crime is on the rise. It's out of control. A lot of voters talking about it. Very weak or vague solutions from a lot of the electeds. But let me tell you something. The way it's different, Sam, than you remember the crime wave of the late 80s, early 90s. The reason it's different now is now you have cell phones. Now you have CCTV cameras. There's really no excuse for this increase in violent crime when you consider the technology that we have that we didn't used to have.
Well, the only thing is that we are now able to tell you what happened, but we can't predict the future from what we have in terms of technology. We can only look and see, take the events of January 6th. You can go arrest all those people that you found committing crimes on camera, but you didn't know who they were in the rally before everything broke away. Hey,
remember the point behind CCTV is to try to stop those crimes before they take place. And if you have proactive policing, that is something you can certainly do.
All right, and that's where we have to leave it. My friend, it's always great to see you. I'm glad the Beverly Hills Weekly is thriving and people can read it online, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sam, always a pleasure. We'll see you soon.
All right, and we'll be right back.
7 at 7 is available anytime, anywhere.
I'm Riley Smith with your Vegas Golden Knights. Watch 7 minutes of nonstop news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Streaming on LVRJ.com and Twitter. Powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Before the masks, before the distancing, before the world changed, UMC was ready. Our response to COVID-19 began before the crisis did, with our own team of infectious disease experts who've spent their careers planning for this moment. With a pandemic response plan, we'd practiced again and again, and by blazing new trails in large-scale testing, including every patient we admit. Always ready. UMC.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Events Center in Las Vegas. Host meetings and events on 2 floors. Stay in luxurious rooms and suites. Unlimited branding opportunities. Regional Italian cuisine by Chef Mark Segrisi. Flexible event spaces. Full buyout options. Visit ahernhotel.com today.
I'm Jeff Gehrman, an investigative reporter with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I'm your guide for Season 2 of Mobbed Up, The Fight for Las Vegas.
You're in with every gangster and hoodlum in the United States. I don't go for that, Mr. Kennedy. I don't go for that kind of action.
I was on television accused of fronting for the mob.
Subscribe to Mobbed Up, The Fight for Las Vegas, Season 2, today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
7 at 7 is available anytime, anywhere.
I'm Riley Smith with your Vegas Golden Knights. Watch 7 minutes of nonstop news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Streaming on LVRJ.com and YouTube. Powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
You can now watch Nevada Newsmakers on YouTube. Subscribe to our Nevada Newsmakers channel. We'll see you on the next broadcast.